The classroom was filled with the sound of chalk scratching against the green board, the smell of old books, and the quiet hum of students trying to keep up with the lesson. The morning sun slanted through the tall windows, painting golden streaks across the wooden desks. And there, standing at the front, was Professor Hiroshi Tanaka, a man known across the university as a linguistic genius, a man who could speak more than 10 languages fluently and had published books that scholars studied across the world. His presence alone could silence a crowd. His deep, confident voice carried weight, authority, and sometimes arrogance. Among the students sitting quietly in the back row was Emma Collins, a 12-year-old girl in a neatly pressed uniform, black pinafore, white shirt, red tie, her golden hair tied in a simple ponytail. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't one of the university students. She was the maid's daughter, the woman who cleaned the professor's office every morning and dusted his shelves filled with foreign dictionaries. Today, her mother had no choice but to bring Emma along because she couldn't find anyone to look after her. Emma sat quietly, clutching her small notebook, her blue eyes moving across the board, following every line the professor wrote. The students barely noticed her at first, but soon whispers began. "Why is she here?" one murmured. "She's the maid's kid," another replied, suppressing a laugh. Emma pretended not to hear. She was used to it, used to being invisible, used to being underestimated. But there was something in her gaze that wasn't ordinary. A quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you carry a secret no one expects. If you're already feeling the tension in this moment, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness for more powerful, emotional stories that remind us how strength and kindness can come from the most unexpected hearts. Professor Tanaka continued writing complicated Japanese kanji across the board, speaking rapidly in his native language, explaining the difference between context and meaning. Then his eyes caught the small figure in the back row. "Young lady," he said, his tone sharp yet curious, "you seem quite focused. Do you understand what I'm teaching?" The room went silent. Every student turned to look at her. Emma froze, clutching her notebook tighter. "I know, sir," she whispered softly. Tanaka chuckled, crossing his arms. "Of course not. Japanese is not something you can learn by simply watching. It takes years of study, discipline, and dedication. Come here." The students exchanged smirks as Emma stood up slowly and walked toward the board. Her shoes clicked softly against the floor. "Here," Tanaka said, handing her the chalk. "Write what I just wrote if you can." He smiled, expecting a blank stare, maybe a nervous breakdown. The class giggled under their breath. Emma looked up at the board, at the beautiful, intricate Japanese symbols. For a moment she hesitated, her hand trembling slightly. Then something shifted in her eyes, a quiet flame ignited. Without a word, she raised the chalk and began to write. Stroke by stroke, perfectly curved lines appeared on the board. Each character flowed naturally, confidently, and precisely. The room fell silent. Even the sound of breathing seemed to pause. Tanaka's smile slowly faded as he watched her reproduce every single kanji flawlessly. When she finished, she placed the chalk down gently and turned to face him. "In fact, Professor," she said softly, switching to Japanese, "you misspelled one character." The entire classroom gasped. Tanaka blinked, stunned. "You speak Japanese," he said, his voice quieter now, as if afraid to break the spell. Emma nodded. "Yes, Professor, but not just Japanese." Her eyes lifted with quiet pride. "I speak English, French, Italian, German, Korean, Russian, Spanish, Mandarin, and Japanese." For a long moment, no one spoke. The world seemed to stand still around her. Then, a few students clapped softly, amazed, while others simply stared in disbelief. Tanaka felt something shift inside him, a crack in his pride. He had spent years mastering languages, traveling the world, lecturing halls filled with scholars, and yet this small girl, this maid's daughter, had just reminded him that genius could come from anywhere. That night Tanaka couldn't sleep. He sat in his office, staring at the chalkboard where Emma had written those perfect lines. Something about her quiet determination kept echoing in his mind. The next morning, he called for his assistant. "Find out everything you can about that girl," he said softly. The next day, Emma's mother, Maria Collins, received an unexpected knock at her small apartment door. When she opened it, Professor Tanaka was standing there, holding a small box wrapped in paper. Maria froze. "Professor, I'm sorry if Emma disturbed your class. She didn't mean to." But Tanaka raised his hand gently. "Your daughter is remarkable," he said. "I'd like to offer her a scholarship to attend the university's special language program. Her talent shouldn't go unnoticed." Maria's eyes filled with tears. She had cleaned floors and offices for years, always dreaming her daughter would one day rise above their struggles. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Days turned into weeks. Emma entered the program, quickly rising as one of the most brilliant linguistic students in the university. The same students who once laughed now took notes from her, listened to her translations, and marveled at her understanding of culture and tone. She didn't just know words, she felt them. Tanaka began mentoring her personally. At first, he tried to teach her, correct her, but soon realized he was learning more from her than she from him. Her perspective was pure, intuitive, unbound by ego. She spoke of languages as living souls, bridges between hearts, not just symbols on paper. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tanaka sat beside her in the empty classroom. "How did you learn so many languages?" he asked quietly. Emma smiled faintly. "My mom cleaned houses for diplomats and professors. I used to sit in corners and listen to them speak. At night, I'd copy their words, their sounds, their stories. I didn't have toys or books, but I had voices." Tanaka nodded, his throat tightening. "You've turned pain into power, Emma." She looked at him, eyes gleaming. "No, Professor, I just learned that language isn't about where you're from, it's about how much you listen." Months later, Emma was invited to speak at an international linguistic conference. The same Professor Tanaka who once doubted her now sat proudly in the front row. As she took the stage, her mother watched from the side, tears streaming down her face. Emma looked across the sea of faces, professors, scholars, and students, and began her speech in Japanese. Then seamlessly she switched to French, then Russian, then Mandarin, and finally back to English. "Language is not just communication," she said. "It's understanding, it's empathy. It's realizing that no matter where we come from or what we look like, our words can connect hearts across the world. My mother used to tell me, never let your circumstances decide your voice. I didn't, and neither should you." The hall erupted into applause, standing, thunderous applause. Tanaka's eyes glistened as he clapped, proud, humbled, and deeply moved. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness. Every story here reminds us that greatness often hides in the most ordinary hearts, and kindness is the language that everyone understands. Years later, Professor Tanaka would often tell his new students the story of a young girl who taught him humility, grace, and the true meaning of language. On his office wall, framed in glass, was a simple piece of chalk writing, the same Japanese characters Emma had written that day. Beneath it, a small note in her handwriting read, "Knowledge speaks, but kindness translates every heart." And every time he looked at it, he smiled, remembering that the greatest lessons sometimes come not from the teacher, but from the student who dares to believe in herself.